This conference will now be recorded.
And welcome all. I can feel the excitement and enthusiasm about learning personalized nutrition. So let's start. So what is exactly personalized nutrition is? So let me explain the basics. So the burden of chronic disease is increasing and affects millions of people in our country. Current approach is not effectively addressing underlying causes of chronic disease found in complex interaction of genes, lifestyle, and environment. Usually, doctors prescribe medications, but medication is like putting band-aid rather than helping the wound to heal. And when we look at the diseases or the etiology, one disease may have multiple causes, and one initiation factor may cause multiple diseases. Atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease and celiac disease are clear example of this. So let's talk about cardiovascular disease. We recognize CVD by its pathology, atherosclerotic plaque. However, the development of plaque can be triggered by multiple factors, which include insulin resistance, uh, folate, B12, B6 deficiency, which ultimately cause hyperhomocysteinemia, occult infections, heavy metal toxicity, inherited dyslipidemias, stress, poor dental hygiene, and other factors that increases inflammation, which ultimately cause immune modulation. And that immune modulation causes the deposition of cholesterol, macrophages, and foam tissues, and ultimately the plaque. But prescribing low-fat diet with the high-carb diet along with beta blockers and statins actually exacerbate the underlying problem in patients with insulin resistance, or may miss entirely the key underlying mechanism, for example, occult infection in a different patient. We know beta blockers inhibit the action of neurotransmitters and renin in various organs by blocking beta 1 and beta 2 receptors.
అట్లనే అవుతుంది ఇంకెప్పుడు అందుకే కాల్స్ రాకుండా నేను ఎవరితో మాట్లాడేస్తాను వాళ్ళు ఎందుకు ఎత్తున్నా ఇప్పుడు ఇంకా ఆమె ఒకటే చెప్తుంది
Someone needs to mute their microphone, please.
పేరేందమ్మా డాక్టర్ ఇంత టైం డాక్టర్
Hello.
ఐడి గుర్తుందా
Someone needs to mute their microphone.
అంతే గో టు మీట్ లోకి పోవాలి వచ్చిందా ఇంత కథ ప్రాసెస్ ఉంటది మనకు తెలుస్తుంది
I'm waiting. Okay, so we were talking about the beta blockers. So beta blockers chelate dietary calcium and prevents its absorption. It also inhibits the action of enzymes requiring coenzyme Q10. Now statins lowers the cholesterol, but it also acts as inflammatory agent, anti-inflammatory agent, and make blood less viscous by changing the shape of it. That's why it is like a favorite medication of physician for CVD. But statin also has side effect. It also lowers CoQ10 synthesis from cholesterol, which is important for cellular respiration and plus immunoprotectant. Now let's look at the fourth aspect of functional medicine. When information is delivered to the genes in the form of diet, poor lifestyle, toxic exposure. Hello, someone needs to mute their mic, please.
beta.
So we were talking about the development of chronic diseases. When wrong information is delivered to the genes in the form of diet, poor lifestyle, toxin exposure, those genes create an environment in the body that is unwary, which is like not aware of possible dangers or problems, ill and uncomfortable. This results in chronic immunological activation or imbalance, and then it shifts from acute threats to chronic dysfunction. We know that we cannot change our genes, but we can influence many variables such as diet, lifestyle, stress, environment, toxin exposure, plus other variables such as endotoxins in the gut, chronic infection, mechanical trauma, which comes from the excessive or overtraining, especially in athletes. Multiple environmental factors can shift the balance of immunological system, creating in various tissues the message of inflammation, which in turn is related to the etiology of most chronic diseases. Now let's see how functional derangement leads to development of disease. Initially, the derangement occurs in particular pathways, signaling mechanism, receptor sites, etc., which we call a problem at a cellular or tissue level. Then the dysfunction, if the dysfunction persists, tissues are affected, then particular organ is affected, and then particular system is affected, and then you diagnose a particular disease with apparent signs and symptoms. But if patient is observing his or her body changes and physicians do detailed assessment to figure out changes occurring at cellular or tissue levels along with the lab markers, multiple diseases can be prevented from becoming advanced. To attain this, we need to look into multiple aspects such as diet, chemical exposure, including agriculture chemicals, household chemicals, cosmetics, etc., quality of food, sleep, mental or psychological state, lab evaluation, medical history, genetics, stress, physical activity, etc. Then designing an intervention based on these factors while considering underlying causes is necessary. And it is called functional nutrition, which is personalized depending on the needs of the particular individual. In homeopathy, there is also a concept called individualization, and remedy selected for one patient may not be suitable for another patient. Same concept applies here. A diet and lifestyle recommendation for one person may not suit another and can exacerbate the problem. So in short, functional nutrition is a science-based approach towards health. It is evidence-based and has patient-centered approach. It digs deep into the way how body functions at physiological and biochemical level. It requires a thought process that can connect the dots to find a health solution. It focuses on cellular and metabolic functions of the body and helps to uncover the root causes of the health issue. In nutrition industry, we usually see a lot of nutritionists or dietitians give general diet recommendation or promote particular food high in particular nutrients or so-called superfoods. for certain health conditions such as weight loss or heart issues, diabetes, thyroid, and so on. But in reality, generalized dietary recommendations do not work. I said do not work for every individual. Why? Because every individual has his unique genotype, genes, and hence unique metabolism of nutrients and unique biochemistry, and again the metabolism drug as well. So for example, let's look at a case study. 47-year-old male was presented with sulfuric allergy, excessive strong smell of sweat like a sulfur, complaining of cold feeling, always in search of warmth, excessive fatigue, does not feel refreshed after a good night's sleep, white marks on more than 2 fingernails, inability to tolerate onion, garlic, eggs, cabbage, cauliflower, basically the vegetables from cruciferous family, and has eczema, cracked lips, tingling in hands, lack of energy. So what do you suspect from that, all these symptoms? Just maybe a thyroid problem, or may not if you look at the lab markers, because his labs was pretty normal. T3 was 2.9, anti-TPO was less than 6, TSH was 4, vitamin D is like 16.1, which is very low. Serum folate, actually, which is not a really good marker, but still we can go with that. It's 12.7. Vitamin B12 is like 131, which is very low. C-peptide is 4.7, so it suggests dysregulation in BSL. Then his physician did not bother to take in-depth look at his thyroid panel, but I interacted with him and suggested more tests. Actually, this thyroid test and nutrient testing was done after my interaction. And then he said, okay, if you think if he has a subclinical hypothyroidism, we'll put him on levothyroxine. But patient refused to take it. And I said, okay, we'll try the natural way and let's see how it helps. I suspected thyroid insufficiency because TSH still looks on like a normal side, but according to the functional nutrition, we evaluate lab markers in a different way. So we have conventional lab range and functional lab range. So according to the functional lab range, TSH is on higher side, and other thyroid markers on normal side. So I strongly suspect he might have subclinical hypothyroidism, primary hypothyroidism. Again, it also suggests patient might have high copper levels, because I know that patient eats a lot of greens, especially kale, which is high in copper, and that patient also explained, like when he eats like onions, garlics, eggs, and high sulfur food, he has a great like a strong smell of like sweat, like a sulfur. And it also suggests the deficiency of zinc, and zinc is required for proper function of thyroid gland. He also has eczema, cracked lips, which suggest B2 deficiency, tingling in hands, also suggests B1, B6 deficiency, B12 deficiency, which we can see in a lab marker. Lack of energy also suggests he might have B6 deficiency. So after reviewing all this, I suspected that he might have a CBS enzyme problem. CBS is cystathionine beta synthase enzyme. So let's look at that enzyme, what it does. Can you see this very complicated diagram? So here, this is homocysteine. Can you see my marker? My arrow?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is homocysteine, and homocysteine get converted to cystathionine by CBS enzyme, cystathionine beta synthase enzyme. And this enzyme uses B6, vitamin B6 and serine to convert it to cystathionine. And this cystathionine is get converted to glutathione, taurine, and sulfate. But what's the importance of this? This is the like whole different cycles that are presented, like methylation cycle, transsulfation, and folate cycle. So it's pretty confusing, but we are just talking about CBS enzyme, this CBS enzyme. But in general, we cannot recommend diet or any intervention just looking at one enzyme problem. We have to look at this whole picture, all these enzymes, how they are working. So let me go back to CBS enzyme. It catalyzes the first step in transsulfuration pathway. This is called as transsulfuration pathway, where homocysteine is converted to cystathionine using vitamin B6 and linked to glutathione, taurine, and sulfate synthesis. And this is the only true pathway for disposal of homocysteine. And there are other pathways such as methylation and tetrahydrobiopterin pathway, which recycles homocysteine. Those other pathways use vitamin B12, zinc, and B6 as well. Downregulation of this CBS enzyme causes slow conversion of this homocysteine to cystathionine. So what happens? Then you have a hyperhomocysteinemia. Homocysteine in the blood increases, which cause the oxidative damage to the blood vessels and increases the risk of developing hypertension and other cardiovascular diseases. But hyperhomocysteinemia can be because of this folate and B12 deficiency. And again, B6. Here B6 is used, B12 and folate, which are mostly used in all these pathways. But it is not necessary to have CBS mutation with B6 deficiency, because normally B6 mutation, if they have B6 mutation, those people may show B6 deficiency and may also have asthma or breathing trouble as well. Now let's see what happens if the CBS enzyme is upregulated, where this homocysteine is rapidly get converted to cystathionine. Then you have a low homocysteine. But you can say, okay, that's a good factor. So we are reducing risk of developing cardiovascular disease. But that's not true. Yeah, it is. But when you have low homocysteine, then you are affecting this methionine cycle, which is important part of methylation. Like it donates the methyl group to DNA and other pathways, which is extremely important. And again, slow or fast CBS mutation may result in autism, Down syndrome, connective tissue disease, cancer, or homocysteinuria. To confirm this mutation or problem, we need to do genetic testing and some other lab testing to validate the SNPs. So you might ask, okay, what is SNP? What does it do? So let's take a look at this slide. SNP is a single change at a single site, basically a single base pair in a DNA sequence, as compared to the most common sequence that occurs in at least 1% of population. SNPs can lead to protein that are more or less active than those from most common sequence and are considered to account for much of variability seen among different individuals, that is biochemical individuality. A SNP in body of a gene may encode proteins such as enzyme, leading to what seems to be the minor change in the structure of protein. But in many cases, this is only one amino acid change, but this change can alter the activity of protein. That means the function of the protein. For example, uh, protein binds its substrate more tightly or less active, becomes less active because binding is so tight, so it cannot get released and have its proper function. So let's go back to my patient. So without doing any genetic testing with signs and symptoms, I focused on reducing or eliminating the sulfur heavy vegetables, garlic, onions, cabbage, cauliflower, kale, broccoli, etc. Uh, uh, whereas we consider like cruciferous vegetable, garlic, onions are very heart healthy, good source of fiber, prebiotics. But in case of this patient, it is increasing his problem because he might have mutation in CBS enzyme. And people who eat eggs, everyone thinks, okay, egg is good to have good muscle building. Gym going persons, athletes, they rely on eggs. But in this patient, eggs is a not good choice. So sulfur sensitive people should limit their consumption of this food. In short, what may be good for one person may be poison for another. But just looking at one enzyme pathway and designing the food plan is not a good way to go. We need to look at the multiple enzymes involved in related pathways to come up with the right solution. But it needs the extensive genetic testing and lab markers, and every patient is not able to do it. Maybe they are not willing to do it, or they cannot afford it. So we need to have different tools to assess and help the patients. So we can go with signs and symptoms and closely observe the changes in nutrition and their signs and symptoms after intervention as well. And I did same with this patient. So I supplemented with B6, non-methylated B12 and folate, vitamin D, which is also required for normal thyroid function. I also added zinc, selenium to support thyroid, and I removed gluten and dairy to support thyroid function again. So in short, biochemical individuality is dependent on the DNA that is present at the moment of conception in each individual. It includes how DNA is expressed and influenced And this biochemical individuality is a key to personalized precision medical nutrition. Let's look at a concept called suprajanirmiti, which is explained in Ayurveda. For suprajanirmiti, right support for DNA expression at the time of conception is necessary. And we know many doctors, like Ayurvedic doctors, have developed a process of Bija Sanskar and Garbha Sanskar. It helps individuals, like both male and female, to reduce stress, increase physical activity, have healthy diet, and what it does, ultimately it supports DNA expression, which affects child's health and development during uh, fetal time. Human body is much more complex and continuously interacting with the environment and responding in a minute way. Functional medicine appreciates the interconnectedness of uh, organs, systems, biochemical and physiological processes. These interrelationships are not limited to those that can be biochemical, hormonal, neurological, immunological, physical, or mechanical. So let's look at the insulin resistance and its web-like interconnection. Where did I miss that slide? Okay, so this is the web-like interaction. If we look at the insulin resistance or metabolic syndrome, we can see there are multiple causes that can cause insulin resistance. So let's look at the environmental inputs. If a person has a sedentary lifestyle, he will decrease the insulin sensitivity. If he is on high glycemic diet, then there is an increased insulin secretion and then again decreased insulin sensitivity. Hormonal or neurotransmitter imbalance. High insulin increases the testosterone, which can cause PCOS, and increased free brown estrogen cause breast cancer. Insulin sensitivity, if that person is insulin resistant, it alters the potassium and sodium distribution, and which increases the peripheral vascular resistance and can cause hypertension. Then energy production and oxidative stress. Hyperglycemia increases the reactive oxygen species, which cause increased microvascular injury, and then it causes the atherosclerotic changes and again the complication of diabetes. Now let's look at the immune and inflammatory imbalance. Obesity or adipose tissues secretes adipokines, which increases the inflammation and increases the risk of CVD. Mind and spirit, especially um, seen in women. High stress causes consumption of high glycemic diet, which increases obesity. And again, high obesity, high adipokines, high increased inflammation, and then risk of developing CVD. And other diseases like autoimmune disease, arthritis. There are so many chronic health conditions which are triggered by inflammation. Okay. Let's talk about environmental and biochemical individuality. Okay. In our lifetime, we are exposed to great number of environmental compounds, to toxins from food, water, air, and in our daily lives, such as cosmetics, plastics, come from household items, and our bodies have an extensive network of responses to manage these new and unknown substances, because the environment is unique to individual, and the responses at the core of what we mean by biochemical individuality. So we know detox, but detox is very different. So let's talk about detoxification pathways, which is done by P450 system, which plays a role in metabolism of xenobiotics, because this system is a first line defense system in our interaction with the environment. These systems manage the environmental exposure but are also regulated by environment. Specific detox pathways may be induced or inhibited depending on the presence of various dietary or exogenous compounds. Gender, lifestyle habit, nutrition, health status, all influences the activity of various detox enzymes. And where these detox enzymes are located? In our liver, mainly. Polymorphism or SNP in phase 1 and phase 2 enzymes of detoxification have been associated with increased prevalence and risk of many conditions, including asthma, cancer of breast, prostate, lungs, esophagus, stomach, pancreas. It also increases the multiple chemical sensitivities and risk of developing cardiovascular disease. So let's see one example. Polymorphism or SNP in human peroxygenase like PON1 gene, which encodes a high density lipoprotein associated enzyme that exerts anti-atherogenic effect by protecting LDL from against oxidation, has been found to influence both sensitivity to specific insecticide or nerve agent and has the risk of developing cardiovascular disease. So how many of you are aware of the use of Roundup in agriculture? It is a herbicide. In India, Roundup is approved to use in tea farms, but it is extensively used in other crops as well. It is used as herbicide, and it is also used to desiccate or spray the crops, and it is very common practice. And the main ingredient in Roundup is glyphosate, which is linked to the cancer. And the so-called inert salts in Roundup, other than glyphosate, are 1,000 times more dangerous and are also linked to cancer. And the well-known cancer after long-term exposure to Roundup is non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. There are cases of kidney and liver damage, endocrine disruption, diabetes, neurological damage when people are exposed to Roundup. Because, Roundup comes in our body through food, through water, because once it's sprayed in the field, it does not deteriorate. It stays there for like years, and it goes in waterways, in soil, everywhere. And like we are eating like small doses of Roundup every day through our food. That's why eating organic, I know organic is not 100% organic nowadays, but still we can avoid or reduce the exposure of chemicals by eating organic. Of course, you need to make sure the farmers are really practicing organic methods to grow their crop. And again, our gut microbiota are also adversely affected by glyphosate, because what glyphosate does, it uh, inhibits the shikimate pathway in plants and microorganisms. But our microbiota is also depend on shikimate pathway, and that's how glyphosate damages our gut microbiota. And when the microbiome is disturbed, then we get a range of diseases linked to the microbiome. So let's see some household chemicals, how they affect our health. These household chemicals can disrupt hormones, can cause liver damage and neurological damage. The chemicals comes from cosmetics are more closer to our body, as we directly put or apply it on our skin. Let's look at the deodorant. How many of you use deodorant? I bet almost everyone use deodorant. Am I right? So deodorant contains, yeah, aluminum, which is associated with oxidative damage to cell membrane, and it was investigated for breast cancer. I have seen so many, oh, sorry, just hold on. So many patients with the breast cancer, and after like doing detailed assessment, I came to know that they use aluminum based deodorant every day for like years, like 20-25 years they are using it. And if they are female, they male, they develop cancer in chest area. And again, deodorant contains fragrances which has undisclosed ingredients, which is associated with allergies, endocrine disruption, and cancer. It also contains ethoxylated ingredients, and which are like carcinogenic. It also contains talc. Talc is contaminated with asbestos fiber, which is like posing risk for respiratory toxicity and cancer. Studies of personal use of talcum powder has mixed results, although the suggestion of possible increase in ovarian cancer risk when people use talc-based product in their genital area. In fact, the issue as to whether asbestos fiber in talc causes ovarian cancer is currently being litigated. Juries have returned large verdicts against Johnson & Johnson, which produce talc, in several cases. Again, deodorant contains artificial dyes that may contain residues of heavy metals and petroleum-based carcinogenic contaminants. So you can see how healthy your deodorant is. You can check it. Chemicals like parabens, phthalates, synthetic colors, formaldehyde, fragrances, propylene glycol make most mainstream skincare and beauty products, and it makes it look good and smell nice. But all these compounds are highly toxic. Ingredients like these toxic compounds are related to hormone disruption, allergies, and other diseases. And This means that instead of supporting your health and beauty and longevity, your skincare routine could be working against you. So let's talk a little bit about DRI of nutrients. DRIs are based simply on minimum amount of nutrients necessary to prevent deficiency diseases. But in fact, nutrients are multifunctional substances with many roles. For example, vitamin D, it prevents rickets, so deficiency disease, but it also has many roles in treating or preventing heart disease, multiple sclerosis, PCOS, depression, epilepsy, type 1 diabetes, um, thyroid, cancer. Uh, Next, micronutrient folate, which not only prevents megaloblastic anemia but also prevents neural tube defects and also has key factor role in preventing cardiovascular diseases, dementia, depression, colon and breast cancer. So let's talk about the famous microbiome. So what is the microbiome and what relationship it has with health? Microbiome refers to entire habitat of humans, including all microorganisms such as bacteria, viruses, and fungi. Microbiome resides on 5 major body sites: nasal passage, oral cavity, skin, GI tract, and urogenital tract. And microbiota is microorganisms of particular site or habitat, such as maybe oral cavity or GI tract. We mostly focus on GI tract microbiome. Microbiome associated conditions are IBS, IBD, Crohn's disease, metabolic diseases such as obesity and type 2 disease, immune diseases, asthma, and especially allergies. Pregnancy complication and preterm birth are also linked to microbiome. Your microbiome starts to take shape when you are in womb. Maternal diet, her exposure to antibiotics, maternal weight gain, then birth history, whether you're born with C-section or vaginally, breastfeeding, all have profound impact on establishing infant's microbiome. And it continuously alters during life with exposure to various factors such as your diet, your environment, um, exposure to chemicals, stress, sleep. Usually, increased diversity of microbiome is linked to lower risk of metabolic or immunological diseases, and decreased diversity has been associated with human diseases. Microbiome support tight junction proteins, it's produce short chain fatty acid, and it modulates immune system and so on. Because in our GI tract, there are more than 100 trillions bacteria residing, and their genetics, microbiome genes talk to our genes. Isn't that great? And they have a symbiotic relationship. That's why we put so much importance on microbiome. So let's discuss one case of SIBO. Have you heard about SIBO? SIBO is like a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So a 63-year-old female presented with SIBO to me. She has severe diarrhea. That diarrhea was so severe that she was afraid to go out and always carried an extra pair of clothes with her because she was so afraid. She couldn't live her normal life. She was lactose intolerant. She has undergone appendectomy. She had polyps in colon. Uh, Part of her colon and small intestine has been taken out due to obstruction and necrosis. She's hypertensive, has pacemakers in 15 years, multiple repair of enterocoel and rectocoel. She has hernia. She has gastritis, grade A esophagitis, small sliding hiatal hernia, so host of problems. And she couldn't eat anything. What she was eating when she came to me, she was just eating banana and bone broth. And after detailed assessment, I found that she was taking acetaminophen, which is a pain reducer and fever reducer, and aspirin continuously for 3 years on empty stomach. So you can imagine the damage that NSAIDs have caused uh, in her GI tract. And she had tons of antibiotics during her life. So I started protocol to heal her GI lining with the targeted supplements. I added antioxidants, herbal antibiotics, probiotics, and slowly introduced appropriate food. She was on low FODMAP, and we figure out which food she can tolerate and which cannot. And she was very dedicated patient. She seriously followed the nutrition plan and the lifestyle changes that I suggested. And after 6 months, she came to me and said, Shilpa, I stopped my diarrhea. I can travel. Just before when she came to me, she said she traveled to another state. She flew. She did air travel, and that was a big thing for her. So uh, these all changes just help her to normalize her microbiome, and that ultimately helped her so she can tolerate more food. So how can we end this webinar without talking about COVID-19? So this is a novel virus in human population with no native immunity. That is important, which means we all are susceptible. To protect ourselves from novel coronavirus, people all over the world are following general instructions like about hand washing, sanitizing, social distancing, etc. So let's focus on how we can support our immune system with nutrients and herbs. Nutrients such as vitamin C. Now everyone knows that vitamin C helps immune system. Vitamin D, vitamin A, zinc, quercetin support immune function, and especially the dark pigmented fruits. Those dark pigmented fruits have antiviral activities. This antiviral action involves neuroaminidase inhibition, which is similar to drug Tamiflu, which is used for flu as antiviral, and also have amphoteric effect on cytokines, meaning it upregulates them when necessary and downregulates them when necessary. So here in US, we use a fruit called elderberry, which is a dark pigmented fruit native to Europe, but now you can find it all over the world. Has antiviral properties. It suppresses toll-like receptor 4, which is responsible for the production of inflammasomes. And those inflammasomes triggers the release of cytokines. In India, we have many dark color fruits, I think. like jamun or bale, karonda, mangosteen, especially found in southern India. I'm not aware which fruit is in season now, but you can find it and just have it in your diet. And base thing is getting your micronutrients from your food, which is very important. Because when you get the mega doses of vitamins from supplements, there is a chance of toxicity. And human body is very smart enough to control the absorption of nutrient depending on the deficiency by modulating transporters in the intestinal epithelium. And I'm not also a big fan of like supplementing nutrients uh, from pills, but I try more on food, or focus on food. So try to get your vitamin C from star fruit, amla, lemon, oranges, or whatever fruits are in season. Peppers. Peppers are a great source of vitamin C. Or you can take vitamin C up to 1000 milligram. But you should start with the low dose, like 200 milligram, and then gradually increase it, because you need to see whether your intestine can tolerate that high dose of vitamin C or not. And the people who has oxalate issue can develop kidney stones if you go on high with vitamin C. That's why it is recommended to take from uh, food, because we don't know who are oxalate sensitive and who are not. Now you can take zinc from like legumes, nuts, and seeds, such as pumpkin seeds, cashews, or sesame seed, eggs, peas. But again, nuts and seeds, cashews are high in oxalate, so people who has oxalate sensitive need to watch out for those food. So portion size really matters here, how much you eat. Quercetin is a flavonoid that can be found in fruits and vegetables and teas and wine, but don't drink wine. The best source is onions, tomatoes, apples, grapes, citrus fruit, and tea. So quercetin will also help to boost your immunity. And in our kitchen, spices such as ginger, turmeric, garlic are there, and those are great immune boosters. Of course, eating whole foods, nutrient-dense diet provide great support to our immune system. So eat multiple serving of colorful fruits and vegetables. Eat fermented food to support your microbiome and immunity. Drink plenty of warm fluids. Get sufficient sleep. Yeah, sleep is very important. Um, Incorporate various relaxation and breathing techniques, and don't forget to exercise. Practice yoga, meditation, and most important thing, start gardening if you are not doing it. Uh, when we are talking about immunity, let's talk a little bit about sugar and its effect on immunity. Sugar has a profound effect on immune system, and it's one of the potent immunosuppressants. Researchers have observed the dramatic drop in WBC count with the introduction of sucrose in bloodstream. Sugar specifically depresses the phagocytic index, and as a general rule, excessive sugar consumption depletes other nutrients in your body, which triggers the cascade of inflammation and metabolic disruption. So control your sugar, or if you can limit or you can stay away from it, just do it. So I hope I gave you a good overview of what personalized functional nutrition is. And I hope you will join the personalized nutrition course webinar series that we are going to start very soon. The webinar series will consist 3 courses, such as Basic, Advanced 1, and Advanced 2. And each course has several modules. And at the end of advanced course, participants will be provided with clinical tools which they can use in their practice. And additionally, I'll provide support to maximize the outcome in your practice. So let's see why you should do this course. To understand functional imbalances in the body, expand your knowledge of biochemistry, physiology, immunology, and its connection with nutrition. Understand the web-like interaction between organ systems. Understand the effect of diet, environment, just air, water, light, radiation. We didn't talk about the EMFs here. Lifestyle, sleep, exercise, spiritual state, emotional state, and its effect on genetic expression, which ultimately reflects your health status. And finally, putting it all together to understand patient and design a personalized nutrition and lifestyle solutions for them. When you incorporate personalized nutrition while seeing your patient, you can reduce their dependency on medication. You can improve their life quality. So I wish you join this webinar course. If you want, I can post the syllabus in our Facebook group, what we will going to cover in those 3 courses. And these are the references. And now, and I think we are going to start the course in April. The first day of the course is April 7th. And you can register for the course with Dr. Yogesh Joshi. We will post information about this on a Facebook group. And now I hand it over to Dr. Yogesh Joshi.
Thanks, madam, for your lecture and information regarding the nutrition. If anybody has some questions, you can ask madam about any questions if you have.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yeah.
What are the herbal antibiotics you mentioned just now?
Usually here we use berberine, oil of oregano, olive leaf extract, and some like herbs, like culinary herbs such as thyme, also has antibacterial activity. Garlic also has antibacterial activity, but it has to be in really concentrated form. I don't think so people can eat like raw garlic in large amount. So it has to be in a peel form.
Okay. And you said before oil of oregano, anything
Berberine.
else, ma'am? Berberian.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know about it, ma'am.
Yeah, actually these herbal antibiotics usually I never seen those things in India. But usually here we use it. We can find it very easily here.
Okay.
Yeah, but we can find what we can do in India, you know, with our in the course we'll come up with the herbal antibiotic which are easily available in India, or what we can extract from our kitchen as well. So we'll discuss about that during the course.
Okay, ma'am. And you said you are going to post it in the Facebook group.
Yeah.
I'm not in the Facebook group. I'm in the WhatsApp group, ma'am.
Oh, sorry, Facebook. No, I messed up on
It's
WhatsApp.
WhatsApp. Okay. Okay, ma'am. Okay. Thank you.
Hello, good
Thank you,
evening,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yeah, well,
Hello,
yeah.
ma'am. This is Dr. Sudha from Delhi.
Hi.
Hi, ma'am. I would like to know about the insulin resistance. I have
Hmm.
not dealt much in this case, but I just want to know what are the diet and precautions to be taken regarding the insulin resistance patients.
Usually, you have to first assess what they are eating, and then you can come up with the right recommendations, especially refined carbohydrates, large portion size, uh, contributes to high insulin, high blood sugar, and eventually, if it continues for a long time, patient develops insulin resistance because body goes in adaptation phase, because uh, patient is eating high glucose diet to normalize that pancreas secreting high insulin, and eventually that patient develops insulin resistance. And if they are fat, have low muscle mass, then again they have insulin resistance, because when you
Okay,
have muscle mass and if you exercise, you don't need insulin for glucose to enter in the cell.
okay,
Yeah, and nutrient deficiencies basically chromium, zinc, B complex is very common in people with diabetes and insulin resistance. So you need to balance the micronutrients.
okay. Actually, ma'am, the patient I'm having is a obese patient, very
Mm-hmm.
obese.
Yeah.
And 47-year-old patient, and his fasting PP all are normal, but only resistance was there, insulin resistance.
Yeah. So he can develop diabetes at any time. So if you change his diet, if he can incorporate weight training to build muscle mass uh, in any form, maybe swimming, maybe just some home exercises, anything, then definitely that that will help to reverse the insulin resistance.
Ma'am, does carbohydrate has to be stopped immediately, or some has to put on some other cereal diet or something, ma'am?
No, 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 no. You cannot stop carbohydrate. Like going on
Okay,
low carb, high fat, high protein is not recommended at all. It has to
okay,
be balanced. So he needs to eat complex carbs and small portion sizes. For
okay,
some people, just 3 meals per day works. For some people, like eating every 2 to 3 hours, like small portion size, will work.
okay,
So you need to see, you have to experiment your patient, you know, what works with him.
okay, ma'am. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am.
You're welcome. Any more questions?
Ma'am, I wanted to know about the fee structure of course.
Okay. Uh, mm, Actually, let me go back to mm, my paper. If I can share that here. Let's see. Let's see.
Uh, Ma'am, fee structure.
Fee structure. Uh, uh,
Yeah.
We will post that in WhatsApp group. Is that okay? So this is the structure actually. The course, primary personalized nutrition course is like for 3 weeks. It's actually 12 hours, and we will cover cell structure, function, which is quite a review, and the nutrient requirements, biochemical pathways that we saw in slides, like in mutation and methylation cycle and all that stuff, oxidative stress, microbiome, detox system, because all these things are really important, because when there's an imbalance on in these systems, people develop chronic diseases. Then in second course, which is advanced nutrition course, which is around 14 hours, which will again go for 3 weeks. There we will study the fundamentals of nutrition and immune system, environmental medicine, genetics and environment, GI function, hormones, and its relation to nutrition. And in the last course, we'll focus on specific systems such as GI systems, cardiovascular, then metabolic systems and autoimmune, thyroid, infertility, usually the common cases that you see in practice, common problems. And then we'll do some case studies, and then we'll provide you the clinical tools. And about the course fee, Dr. Joshi will post it on WhatsApp group.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay, ma'am, I have several questions. One is on, you've mentioned genetics several times,
Yeah.
and is there any, has it been shown that there are genetic changes dependent on food intake? That's one. And related to that question is, you mentioned glyphosate and you didn't mention genetically modified crops, but it has been shown that DNA moves from the genetically modified crops to intestinal cells. So has the nutrition field at all addressed that?
Yeah, definitely. I didn't mention GMOs here, but of course, GMO is a big topic. Yeah, there are studies which I can find for you and post it, which shows the relationship of genetics and the glyphosate.
It's not just glyphosate. I was asking about DNA movement, horizontal gene transfer from the genetically modified crops
Okay,
into
genetically modified. Actually, I'm not aware of those studies actually. How does that happens, or the actual pathway or mechanism?
yeah.
But maybe I can find it and then post it on group, so yeah, we all can learn.
Okay, thank you. There's my first question was, has it been shown that there are genetic changes depending on the food intake of individuals?
Oh, yes. Genetic changes means we cannot change genes, but we can mute them, we can put them to sleep. And
So yes, even like SNPs that you were talking about,
yeah,
mutate is genetic change. So
yes.
it has been shown that food dietary habits are changing the genetic makeup of individuals. Has
No,
that been proved?
yeah, no, it doesn't change the genetic makeup. If you have a sniff, it will be there for whole life. But with changes in diet, we can put that gene to sleep. You know what I
Okay,
mean?
I
Uh,
see. Okay.
there is a methylation process, which methyl group, CH3 group, get attached to DNA and histone, and it just shuts that gene off. like just put it to sleep.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, okay. So there is a repression of genes, you're saying, depending on diet.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. One more question is that you have mentioned that dark colored fruits have antiviral activities, and you were showing quite a few pathways and how you're tailoring your nutritional advice depending on the pathways. So I mean specific enzymes even. So has anything been shown about how these dark colored fruits, I know you mentioned a few names of vitamins and stuff, that what pathways are affected by these chemicals in dark colored fruits?
I talked about the neuroaminidase activity. The anthocyanins in those fruits inhibit the neuroaminidase, like Tamiflu.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Also, I was wondering, I mean, in your course, are you going to be able to relate what you're talking about nutrition with Ayurvedic nutrition? Because that's
I'm gonna do that. Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions? So looks like we are all done here. And we'll post the information about the course and fee structure in WhatsApp group. So I hand it over to Dr. Joshi.
We will conclude today's lecture. Further, all information will be shared in the group, and any of the person who want to know more of all of these things can communicate with me directly. So thank you for attending all this session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.